Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And I have the copy that was illustrated by Elise Hurst, who is Australian. Neil is British. I love the book. I gave it 5 stars. I didn't know what to expect. I also didn't realize I had such a nice copy. I don't remember why I grabbed this version of it, but there's all these nice little illustrations in it, which also changes up the kind of the page count because some of these pages have no words on them. But I liked it. I got this because I had heard, I was watching a bookshelf tour, kind of a bookshelf tour, I think, by Ruby Granger. And she had mentioned that this was her favorite book. So I went out and I bought it. This is one of the handful of books that I've bought from recommendations on BookTube. I had not picked it up. I just had it for a future read. And I think I saw it on somebody's to be read list this month, and I was like, I might as well do it. I had just finished the last book that was directly related to Moby Dick that I have, and this was kind of like an open, like a free spot for me. I hadn't really planned on what to read next, so I read this. I liked it a lot. Before I started this video, I was trying to remember some of the characters' names. Now, I finished this yesterday. I tried to remember the characters' names, and I couldn't remember the main character. And I was looking on Wikipedia, I was looking online, and I figured out that it is an unnamed protagonist. So that's why I couldn't remember his name. Here's what happens in the book. And before I even started on the book, I'm about to go see the Batman. So I'm wearing my Blue Beetle stuff. I'm very excited to go see the Batman. I'm going with my daughter's best friend's dad. It's like a little man date. So can't wait to see their Bono. Bono bought the tickets. I'll buy the candy and the drinks and the popcorn, I guess, if we're getting popcorn. So what happens in this book? We start the book in the future with an unnamed adult, who's the protagonist, the main character, and he is in town for a funeral. I don't think we even know who died. He's driving through the countryside where his house used to be because it was torn down, and where the house that was built after that was. And he ended up at this farmhouse. And he went up to the door and he knocked, and there was a woman there, an old woman. She gave him maybe some milk or something, a tea. And he was looking for, he decided he was looking for her daughter or her granddaughter, Letty Hempstock. He really didn't know how he ended up there. And she recommended he go down to the pond behind the house just to enjoy his tea. So he goes back there and he starts having memories. And he's remembering back to when he was 7 years old and recounting what that house meant to him. And specifically, like basically a summer, what had happened that summer. There was an opal dealer from South Africa who stayed at their house. The narrator's family had lost some money, and they were going to kind of let some of the rooms to make up for some of the lost money that they'd been making. And one of the people that let the room, one of the rooms, was an opal dealer from South Africa. And we find out pretty early in the book, lost a lot of money, his money and his friend's money, betting in the UK, and he killed himself. Because of where he killed himself and because of how he killed himself, he basically unleashed, I don't know what to call it, almost like a spirit of some kind from another dimension, another world. I have a sparkle on my eye. I don't know. It's just like a parallel universe. I don't know how to describe it. So they find this body in the narrator's family's Mini, and the police are there and they're investigating it, and they don't want their son the son being the narrator, to really see stuff. So Letty comes from the nearby farmhouse. She said, hey, you can come over to our house. And you become aware very early on in the book that there's something else going on with the Hampstead family. It's all women. It's a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. But there's something else going on. Like, they know things. They can see what's going on. They can affect things in certain ways that seem supernatural. But But you don't realize that at first, or you don't realize the extent of that. So this guy dies. All of a sudden, coins start showing up, money starts showing up in the town, and our protagonist chokes on a coin. And he goes back to Letty and lets her know, and they decide that they need to go to this other dimension to bind this, I don't know what it is, like a spirit or something. They call it a flea. Bind it so it doesn't do this kind of thing. Like interfere with our world, our reality. Our narrator goes with Letty, and he's supposed to hold her hand the whole time, but during the confrontation with this spirit in this other world, he lets go of Letty for a second, and he gets this pain in his foot. Later we find out that the pain was a worm that had been drilled into his foot. That was really like a wormhole or a doorway from this alternate reality world kind of thing to our reality. And through that came Ursula Monkton. And she was going to kind of be a nanny while the father and the mother of the narrator went off to work. She was going to watch them during the day, the narrator and his sister. It turns out Ursula's really bad. She's really a bitch. And she abuses the narrator, befriends the daughter, screws around with the dad, kind of blinds the mom to all of this. And she's using them because she's from another world, and she wants to give everyone in our world what they want, which will allow her to kind of like devour it or kind of destroy the earth. So our narrator's stuck. She keeps him locked away. She motivated his dad to kind of attack him and try to drown him in the bathtub. Things are really blowing up, and eventually he gets in such trouble that he's locked in his room, the narrator. He sneaks out, sees his dad screwing Ursula in their study or something. He runs away. She confronts him, but he runs to this farmhouse of Letty, and Letty kind of protects him. He's very close to being taken, and Letty confronts the spirit and sends her away back to the house. And then Letty's family decides they need to get rid of this person, Ursula. So they go the next day. They basically summon these kind of like carrion vulture things that are from this other world that eat remnants of this other world that end up in our world. They're kind of like the Langoliers, I would think of. They basically just consume pieces of us and they go away. So they kill Ursula, they eat her up, and then it turns out there's a little piece of this other world in the narrator's heart. When he was trying to pull it out of his foot, it got stuck. And these vultures want to eat him, but Letty likes him, and her family likes him, and he's under their protection, so they fight back, and eventually these vultures hurt Letty badly. And she has to be taken to the ocean at the end of the lane, which looks like a pond, but it's actually this ocean from another world, basically, with healing powers, and it's kind of its own sentient properties. Letty's grandmother is very powerful, and I don't know if she's the most powerful or what. I don't actually know what she is. I don't know if she's God, if she is... she's not a witch, but she's very, very powerful. She's so powerful that she's scared the carrion, the vultures, and they apologize to her for attacking her daughter. Whatever it is, she has a lot of power. But something happened to Letty, and they take her to the ocean. And I guess at some point she may come back, but she's kind of dead, but she's not dead. Like, death is not something that they consider. They kind of wipe the narrator's mind, because it's going to be easier for him to move on with his life if he hasn't been burdened with this tragedy. Also, when he was in the water, when he was in the ocean, being protected from the kind of the vultures, he knew everything. Like, there was some kind of almost like the tree of knowledge. Like, he just knew everything. And they kind of wiped that from him too. So he gets older. He goes off. The story is that Letty went off to Australia. That's not what really happened, but she was taken back by the ocean. But, the regular world needs to have some kind of explanation for this girl missing. So she went to her father's in Australia, and that's kind of what our narrator accepted and his family accepted. He moved back with them. He grows up. And what we find out at the end of this This is going to be a spoiler. I mean, this has all been kind of a spoiler, but what we find out at the end of this is he's been back before. His mind's kind of wiped every time he comes back, and he's really coming back because Letty wants to see that he was worth her sacrifice. She put herself on top of him when the vultures were attacking and trying to get his heart. She was hurt, basically killed in whatever sense you can have for the way they would be destroyed. But she wants to see that sacrifice was worth it, that the narrator is a good person, and I don't know if it's like paying it forward or what. It almost reminds me of the end of, or I guess kind of the beginning and end of Saving Private Ryan, where Ryan wants to know that he earned the sacrifice of the soldiers that went to save Private Ryan. That's kind of what it felt like. She wanted to see how he was doing, and he didn't remember that he had been there before. But the old women knew that he had been there before, and they said he's doing better than he was the last time. So we don't really have like a whole lot of closure. We don't know what he's doing. He doesn't seem like an overly impressive person, but he doesn't seem like a bad person. The characters, Letty especially, are really lovable characters. Just the power, the way they take care of them, everything about them. I love the character of Letty, and just great character. She was a kid, but she's not. Like, she's been around for probably millennia. You don't ever really know how long she's been around, but she's been 11. But she's not really an 11-year-old. But you don't get a good feeling for if the narrator did anything great. He had kids. I think he got divorced. He's basically your average person. So he had this amazing experience that he forgets until he goes back, and then he forgets again after he leaves. He knew about this whole other battle of this whole other reality that nobody else knows about, that he was part of, that he had an important role in, especially with Letty's, how she came out of it injured and needing to rest and possibly never come back, but we think she will at some point. There's not a whole lot of closure at the end of this book. It's just, you know that he's been there before and he'll be back again, and hopefully he'll be better and better every time he comes back. But it's really hard to determine if he's good enough for the sacrifice that Letty gave. I get the feeling that in Letty's mind it is. Letty didn't do it as a quid pro quo. She did it because Letty was a good person, or a good whatever she was. She protected him, she watched out for him, and she promised that he would be okay. And she followed through with that promise. I think she just wants to see him. And that's how she can see him now. I really liked it. I've read Neil Gaiman before. I've read all the Sandman books. So that's what I've read of his. I think he's very active on Twitter. He seems pretty cool there too. I didn't know what to expect going to this book. It kind of reminded me of Tuck Everlasting, where you don't know what's going to happen. And then at some point you're like, wait, is this supernatural? Like, what? These people live forever? How long have they been around? What are they? It kind of reminded me of that in a way, but to another degree, because there's even more of that kind of supernatural mythology kind of stuff going on. So I loved it. I recommend it. It's a fun read. I thought it may have been young adult, because I just don't know what young adult is apparently. But I was told it's not young adult. There are pretty adult situations in this book. It gets pretty dark. Not the darkest I've read, but pretty dark. So, The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I think this edition is just great with the illustrations from Elise Hurst. She's from Australia, and that's where Letty went. Check it out. If you haven't read it, I think a lot of people have read it. There seems to be mixed reviews of this online. Some people are like, I loved it. Some people don't like it. It seems, I don't know if it's like polarizing or what, but I enjoyed it. And I really like the copy of the book I have too. So that even made it better, just having some really kind of out there illustrations to go along with the reading. And I didn't realize this when I picked out my wardrobe for the Batman movie today, my Blue Beetle stuff, but I kind of match with the cover too, which is totally unintended. Or was it? I don't know. So I hope you enjoyed this today. This is pretty quick. Actually, I read this book in 2 days. And really more like 1 day. I really enjoyed this book. So, and it's a quick read. I don't know how thick this book is if it doesn't have illustrations. I thought this was going to be a longer read, but there are whole pages on here that have no writing. So, in the illustrated edition. But check it out. And I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to go see The Batman now, which I hope I enjoy. I will probably watch that longer than it took me to read this book, because it's going to be a long movie. And we'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.
Kom till mig och get